Hello, reporter room investigators. Come on in, come on in. Join me. We're going to be talking about the Sebastian Rogers case. I found something new today. I was going through a old interview and wow, I figured out something that I did not catch the first couple times I'm watching it. So today we're talking about the disappearance of Sebastian Rogers. We're going to be talking about some discrepancies regarding Chris and Katie Proudfoot. I've been going through some of the old interviews. I went through WebSleuths Live this week. I went through Nancy Grace. I went through a couple of their other ones, and I caught something really, really huge. So we're going to start with that. So let's go ahead and get started.
This is Reporter Room with Jessica Della Davies.
So come on in. Tell me where you're from. Somebody said to me I thought this was funny. They said that I said come on in, and that somebody else, another YouTuber, had said it, so therefore I'd copied it. And I thought, oh my gosh, there's millions of YouTubers all over the world, and we all say subscribe. I'm sure we all say come on in, but I thought it was cute that they thought. And then somebody else thought this. I used music and somebody else used it, that they had copied my music. And I just want to say we all pull from the same YouTuber library for our music. So just because somebody else has similar music to me doesn't mean that they're copying my music. It just means that, let me fix this camera a little bit. It just means that it just means we're all pulling from the same library. So anyway, I just wanted to share that with you. I thought that was cute. So come on in, guys. Tell me where you're from. And let me go ahead. You guys know I love to get started on this, and we are doing a members only. Okay, so get this. I have a bunch of stuff to go through. I do have to CYA myself. Okay, so my name is Jessica Della Davies. I'm an investigative journalist. My job is to investigate crimes, crime scenes, and potential suspects, and share with you how to do the same thing. If you haven't subscribed to Reporter Room, please do. Like, share, leave a comment, and know that everything I'm sharing with you is my opinion, and opinions are not facts. This video is for educational and entertainment purposes only. So I just wanted to get that out of the way. And I do want to say thank you to our mods. They're the ones with the check marks next to their name, or wrenches next to their name. To our channel members, they're the ones with the check marks, and to all of our subscribers. And if we have time today, I'm going to go through subscriber comments from the last video. So if you haven't dropped me a comment under the last video or live stream that I did on this case, drop me a comment, because I'm going to go through, I'll click out and just show the subscriber comments, and we'll go through those. So I want to talk about something that I caught in the Nancy Grace interview. Before I told you, I thought that Katie Proudfoot was lying by omission, but it's worse. You guys, it's worse. It's worse. Let me show you. Let me see where I need to go on this. Okay. Make sure I'm sharing it.
Working.
Okay, so we're all looking at the same thing. Hold on, y'all.
I'm currently working, or was working, at the St.
Okay.
A ground level.
Can you guys hear it?
We have a ranch style house. It's a 1.5 story. So everything's flat, and then you have the bonus room above the garage.
For those of you that are like, oh no, she's going through this again. No, I'm not. I want to show you something that I just caught.
Okay. So his is on ground floor, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. That morning, was there any sign of a break-in through a window, a front door, a back door, a sliding glass door, anything at all?
Okay, I just have to go forward, because we're not going through this whole thing. I know some people are like, oh, she's going through this. No, I just caught something that I think is important.
Oh, he is alive and well at 10 p.m. At 6 a.m. He's gone. You say he's never left before. Is that right?
Correct. He's never run off before.
And could I confirm, where was his bio dad at the time he went missing?
I believe he was at work in Nashville.
Had there been any family argument, or altercation prior to him going missing?
No, ma'am.
And Mr. Proudfoot, when did you leave town?
Early February.
So you had been gone for days before he went missing. Is that correct?
Correct,
Weeks.
ma'am.
Had you visited home since you left?
You said from when I initially left?
Yes.
Yes, ma'am. I came home February 26th, the morning I was told that he was missing.
From the time that you left for the job in Memphis to February 26th, did you visit the home?
Yes, ma'am.
When?
I was home. I can't give exact dates. Law enforcement has told me not to provide exact dates.
No, they haven't. Why would they tell him not to provide exact dates that he came home? But wait, that's not even what I want to show you.
But I had been home multiple times prior to February. And then I left early February and then didn't come back till February 26th, the morning he was missing.
Wait
So
for it, you guys.
you were not home from the time you left early February till Feb 26. Is that right?
Correct, ma'am.
Where were you living in Memphis?
I have an RV trailer that I stay in at an RV park.
RV park. Okay. Following back up on that morning, you search the home, Ms. Proudfoot. Then you get in your vehicle and you start searching. Did Sebastian know how to drive?
No, ma'am.
Was your car in the same location when you woke up that morning as it was the night before?
Yes, ma'am.
Has your car been searched by police?
Multiple times. Yes, ma'am.
Have scent dogs looked at your car?
Yes, ma'am.
So your car's in the same place. You get in the car, you start looking in the neighborhood for him. Is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
Then you call Mr. Proudfoot, right?
I believe I was already on the phone with him at that point.
Okay. Question. Who called 911?
I did.
You did.
Yes,
What
ma'am.
time?
Without looking at a call log, I can't give you the exact time, but on or about 6:20.
And had you guys been talking on the phone before 6 a.m. or did you initially call Mr. Proudfoot at the time you realized Sebastian was gone?
I called him when I realized Sebastian was gone.
Have you guys been out looking for Sebastian?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
We were given information that you guys have left the home. Is that true?
And look where they are in this. They're in the camper, right? But wait, this still.
Yes, ma'am.
Why?
I'm going back to work.
You're going back to work. What about you, Miss Proudfoot?
And I'm not going back to work. Not yet, at least.
Did you leave the home also, Miss Proudfoot?
Yes.
So she dances around there. She tries not to answer this. So Nancy has to just ask her, did you leave the home? Nancy knows the answer to this question, but and I'm going to show you this because I want to point out something, but this is not what I caught today. That's coming after this.
Why?
To accompany my husband going back to work, and then I'm coming back.
So no mention of threats at this point. This isn't what I want to show you, but I just want to I do want to like go in order. No mention of anybody threatening her that she had to leave, which is what she claims later. Once there was this huge public outcry of everybody that she left the house where law enforcement told her to be there. So, but wait, there's more. but no mention of
Okay,
threats.
when will you be back? Do you know yet?
No, not yet.
Are you concerned about being away while the search is ongoing?
Absolutely, I am.
Then why are you going?
Because my son could be anywhere, and we're looking everywhere and anywhere.
So again, no mention of threats, but wait, there's more.
I've got a question for you.
Yes,
I want to find out about Mr. Proudfoot hitting Sebastian with a belt. What happened?
that was actually several years ago, and it
To
was
Mr. Proudfoot.
Did you catch that? That's what I wanted to show you. That was actually several years ago. Katie is lying about the belt. I told you guys that she was silent, that she was complicit in her silence because she didn't say anything. But before Nancy interrupts her, Katie lies to us, lies to Nancy, lies to everyone.
I've got a question for you.
Yes,
I want
ma'am.
to find out about Mr. Proudfoot hitting Sebastian with a belt. What happened?
That was actually several years ago.
That's a lie. It actually wasn't several years ago. It wasn't several years ago. That's a lie. And so Katie is not just Chris Proudfoot lying. Katie is also lying here. And how do we know this? Because let me go here. All right. Well, hold on.
Well, he got caught lying, and I had asked him. I said, "Hey, you got to have a punishment for this." He says, "Yes, sir." And I said, "Okay." So I gave him a swat with a belt on his buttocks on the outside of his clothes. One swat.
What did he lie about?
I honestly don't remember at the time, but it was probably something dealing with school because that's majority where his issues lie.
When was this?
Years ago, ma'am.
So they tell Nancy Grace, Katie says it and Chris says it, that it's years ago.
Any idea how many? 3, 10, 1?
It probably at least 3 years ago.
At least
I don't
3 years
understand
ago.
how that turned into a CPS or Child Protective Services complaint. How were they alerted that you hit him with a belt?
That did not turn into a CPS service call.
Hey, have you ever had CPS called on you before?
Yes.
Okay. And you don't have to go into it elaborate or anything like that. That was the question that I had.
This is Smiley's Story World in her interview with Chris Proudfoot.
And that happens, sometimes, especially when you have a child who is, has special needs and stuff. That's hard.
I'll be honest with you. I've had CPS called on me in 2 states, New Mexico and Tennessee.
And did that include with Sebastian?
Tennessee was Sebastian, yes, ma'am.
Okay.
And in fact, Sebastian here, like I said, I got nothing to hide. So Sebastian went to school one day because we were at the house.
Well, he does have something to hide, apparently, because he lied to Nancy Grace and to all of us who watched the Nancy Grace about this. He lied.
He got in trouble. He didn't have a belt on.
Allegedly, in my opinion.
I was like, "Where's your belt?" And got it. Whack. Got him. So he goes to school and he tells the teacher. They're mandatory reporters. So the teacher reports it. That afternoon, CPS shows up to the house while we're actually sitting down to eat dinner. Now, mind you, 15-year-old child.
So that proves that this is not 3 years ago. He's talking about a 15-year-old child. Sebastian was 15 when he disappeared. And we also know from Seth that this all happened. Before. So I just wanted to show you Katie lying to all of you. That it wasn't her just being lying by omission. It wasn't just her lying silently. She literally lied on the Nancy Grace show. I'm going to watch it one more time and then we're moving on. I got more to show you.
Back to work. What about you, Miss Proudfoot?
And she's lying about going back to work too. She said later it's because there's threats, but notice in this interview, there's no mention of her being threatened. None at all. Not one word about it.
And I'm not going back to work.
Why? Because
Not yet, at least.
it didn't happen.
Did you leave the home also, Miss Proudfoot?
Yes, ma'am.
Why?
To accompany my husband going back to work, and then I'm coming back.
Okay. When will you be back? Do you know yet?
No, not yet.
Again, this mother goes, her child is missing. It's been just a few weeks. This was 11 months ago. So this was just weeks after he disappears. And she was not getting threats. She didn't say that on Nancy Grace. And she's literally sitting in that camper. If you look back, that is not the interior of their house. That is their camper.
Are you concerned about being away while the search is ongoing?
Absolutely, I am.
But not concerned enough to be there. But she's absolutely concerned. But no mention of threats here. And then she flat out lies.
Then why are you going?
Because my son could be anywhere, and we're looking everywhere and anywhere.
I've got a question for you.
Yes,
I want to find out about Mr. Proudfoot hitting Sebastian with a belt. What happened?
And Katie is going to lie to you.
That was actually several years ago.
That was actually several years ago, which I just showed you Smiley Story World, where he says he was 15.
Sitting down to eat dinner. Now, mind you, 15-year-old child.
When was this?
Years ago, ma'am.
Any idea how many? 3, 10, 1?
It probably at least 3 years ago.
Now, mind you, 15-year-old child, he's not real happy because he's in trouble, so he's being punished. So he shows, he makes a report. They come to the house, and the lady who comes to the house is the same lady we've had. She's had a case before.
Okay, and I just want to give credit to Jace for Justice here. She put these two together. I put together the part where Katie is telling us lies about her reasoning. So, all right, let me move myself over here. We have. And I'm being told that can you guys hear the audio? Okay, if I play the audio, let me just do a test. Can you guys hear Trisha? That's what we all heard. Can you guys hear Trisha? No? Okay, let me refresh and come back in. Hold on. Okay, let me grab it again and try to tell me if you guys can hear it. I don't want to play it and then find out you guys can't hear it. Okay, tell me if you guys can hear it.
What did you say?
She asked the question about a situation, and she asked me if I had ever had CPS called on me, I believe is what the question was. I'm going to tell you right now, I don't exactly know what the question was without hearing it again. So I'm not going to answer you with something without having it in front of you.
Okay, that's fair. That's very fair.
Okay, so let's now listen to Chris Proudfoot to talk to us on Trisha's. This is Trisha WebSleuths Live. Let's hear him lie to us some more about what he told not to. I just played it for you. I just played what he told Nancy Grace about the CPS call. I played for you what he told Smiley. Now let's play what he says on WebSleuths Live.
And yes, I laughed at it because when I explained to Sebastian, very detailed, what happens, he thought,
Just close the chat. I'm not
yeah,
even.
like
looking at it.
you had somebody in the chat that literally.
He's soothing Chris's ego. I listen, I've talked to him late night on a phone. He's just a normal dude trying to figure something out. That's how he sounds like. Now he's on here with I've seen him on shows. Remember at the beginning, him and his wife would go on shows and they were totally.
This belt is not. He got one lick on his butt.
How the social services or child protective services came to your door and apologized to you. That got people upset. It got
Well,
people.
and that, but right, let's clear that real quick.
Okay.
That needs to be cleared up because what was said and what people heard are two totally different things.
I heard you
Because
say you hit him with a belt.
Okay, so let me finish because that's the problem. When I go to make the statement, people want to interrupt and try to say, well, this and that. No, you wanted the answer. I'm giving you the answer.
See how rude he is to women? He's so awful. And Sebastian was just a special needs teenager. This is how he treats people that he sees. I'm sure he was nice to Gray. I bet he was. But he's not nice to Trisha. But wait.
Now, when I answered that question, I told people Sebastian got a spanking. He got one lick on his butt outside of his clothes. If somebody can tell me how that's abuse to a child, explain to me.
Can you confirm when that happened?
I don't. That was years ago.
Yes.
That's a lie. He said on Smiley's Story World. I just played it for you. Not years ago. Not years ago. He said Sebastian was 15.
Spanked by a belt and wooden spoon by my mom for years.
So, but let's not sidetrack. Let's not sidetrack. Let's stay on board.
Yeah, let's stay on board, Chris.
So the question about the CPS thing that came up to play that everybody wants to tie to this belt is not what it was.
Okay.
Right. Now we know there weren't one, there weren't two, there weren't three. Supposedly there's like between 3 and 5 CPS cases, depending on what story we're being told today. But he told Nancy Grace 3 years ago, Smiley Story World, he talks about it and says Sebastian was 15 years old.
I think it was confusing because when you initially talked about it, you referred to him as an embarrassed 15-year-old. So
Yes, you did.
Like it was years ago.
We thought it was like right recently.
And I don't think we're being confused. I think they're being generous. You know, give somebody the rope. They're giving them the rope.
Well, instead of asking more clarification,
let's clear it up.
So, as it stands, Sebastian went to school one day. He made a statement to a teacher. The teacher reports it to CPS. CPS comes to the house. That case has nothing to do with Sebastian getting spanked.
So there's multiple CPS, but this whole thing with Nancy Grace, that it was 3 years ago, is just a lie. So now he's just conflating, just trying to, sow confusion and doubt. But he lied. And you know who else lied? Katie lied. She also said it was years ago. Her own words, I just played them. So for everybody who's, and Katie who's like, oh no, for those of you guys, that, no, Katie, I had to leave. I was getting threats. There's no mention of threats on Nancy Grace. That would have been the time to say it. That would have been the time to say it. No mention of that. Nope. She just wanted to accompany Chris back to work. She left because she wanted to. That's the bottom line. But when people cried out that a mother of a missing child wouldn't do something like that, that's when suddenly she got threats.
That had everything to do with Sebastian didn't like being in trouble. So he thought by reporting it to a teacher, they were going to come to the house and they're going to take me out of the house and do this and do that. That is what the CPS case was about. And yes,
Which CPS case, Chris? Which one? Which one are you talking about now?
I laughed at it because when I explained to Sebastian,
He laughed at it. He laughed. Imagine being Sebastian. You tell your teachers what's happening to you in the house at the hands of this man. Your mother lies. She went on Nancy Grace and lied. So your mother either says nothing, sits on her hands while the stepfather lies, or she's complicit. And I thought, well, maybe she's just complicit. And then I rewatched the Nancy Grace interview and I realized that when she said she was also claiming that it was years ago and that was a lie.
very detailed, what happens, he thought it was a joke. When the CPS lady shows up and looks at him and says, Sebastian, you can't false report. That will get people in trouble and you can get in trouble.
Gee, I don't even know if I believe that ever happened. If it did, it's because Katie Proudfoot didn't advocate for Sebastian at the very best case scenario. But after seeing her go on Nancy Grace and boldface lie to all of us, lie to Nancy Grace about this being years ago, you guys, I'm like, my head is spinning. When I found that, I was just, this is why I like going back over things and over things.
And then
What?
she explained to him what happens.
What did he say you did to him?
Can I ask you, what does that have to do with the price of eggs in China?
It has everything to do with the price of eggs in China. What did you do to him? Why don't you want to answer that? Why does that make you so angry, Chris Proudfoot? It's because you were putting your hands on a special needs little boy. And Katie Proudfoot, did you stand by and do nothing and then help stepfather lie about it on Nancy Grace by saying it was years ago? When we have heard from PI Heather that the case was recently closed in the weeks leading up to Sebastian disappearing. Seth has all the CPS reports and can't release them. Chris is being called out. He does not like it.
When
Well,
it comes to the disappearance of Sebastian.
Because I'll tell you why. Because you're wondering why people are coming at you. And
Yes,
it's because he was in your home last. That was the last place he was seen.
That's right.
Yes,
So
he was.
when we hear these things, it's like, okay, let's just clear it up and see what happened. Because I'll tell you why. Because people, I'm not saying me, but I've seen people say, hey, he was hitting his child. He reported it to his teacher. Did something happen? Was there an explosive incident that happened?
No, absolutely nothing of that nature.
Okay.
Unfortunately, we can't believe anything that Chris Proudfoot tells us. Can we? Can we? He has no credibility. Neither does Katie. Can you
Are
guys
you
hear this?
concerned about being away while the search is ongoing?
Absolutely, I am.
Then why are you going?
Because my son could be anywhere and we're looking everywhere and anywhere.
So that's not I'm being threatened. That's not the same thing. Sorry. Not sorry. This just
I've got a
bothers
question
me.
for you.
This bothers me.
I
Yes,
want
ma'am.
to find out about Mr. Proudfoot hitting Sebastian with a belt. What happened?
That was actually several years ago. And it
To
was
Mr. Proudfoot.
Katie lied. That was actually several years ago. And I just showed you Smiley Story World where he tells you that Sebastian was 15 years old. And I just showed you on WebSleuths live where she, the PI Chloe also said, well, there's some confusion because you said he was 15. But Chris Proudfoot's going to lie to you right here too.
To Mr. Proudfoot. To Mr. Proudfoot.
Yes,
Mr.
ma'am.
Proudfoot, what happened?
Oh, I'm sorry. I misunderstood. I thought you were asking Katie. Sebastian had gotten in trouble. He got caught lying. And I had asked him, I said, hey, you got to have a punishment for this. He says, yes, sir. And I said, okay. So I gave him a swat with a belt on his buttocks on the outside of his clothes, one swat.
What did he lie about?
Honestly, I don't remember at the time, but it was probably something dealing with school because that's majority where his issues lie.
So that's what happens in the Proudfoot house if you tell something that's a lie, if that's even true, if that's even the reason. Who knows? These people have zero credibility. Zero credibility. And people are like, oh, but she had to go. She had to leave. She had no choice. She couldn't stay in the house. She was getting threats. That's not true. She had the chance right there and then to say, I got threats. I left. She didn't say that. She wanted to accompany Chris. She wanted to go. So, and then she's asked directly about Chris Proudfoot, and she says it happened 3 years ago. And Chris Proudfoot talks about it on Smiley Story World, and it says Sebastian's 15. And then when he's called out on his lies on WebSleuths Live, he has a freaking meltdown. So according to what he told Smiley on Smiley Story World, it was because Sebastian didn't wear a belt. In the version he tells to Nancy Grace, it's because he lied. Who knows? Maybe he didn't. Maybe Chris just had a bad day and decided he was going to take it out on the littlest, most person that had a chromosomal deletion syndrome, which means that if he has fluid on the brain that needs to drain, and that if he falls or if something happens to him, which is, another reason why you shouldn't be putting your hands on somebody. But Chris Proudfoot also makes the stunning claim on WebSleuths Live that it's only abuse if it leaves marks. That's not true. There are so many things wrong with that statement. The first thing is we have to take Chris Proudfoot's word that there was no marks on Sebastian. I'm not prepared to do that. The second thing was CPS was called to the house. We have Sebastian's teachers filing these reports. So what did the teachers see? Were there any marks on Sebastian? I think law enforcement should call the teachers and ask them to come in and find out if there was ever a belt. But even if he managed to do that and not leave a mark, it still doesn't mean it's not the A word. It's not CA. Because according to Legal Match, what constitutes physical child A? It's a child being physically A when they are hit with a belt or a paddle, pinched hard enough to leave a mark that doesn't go away, that doesn't go right away, burned with the cigarettes or a lighter or an iron, bitten forcefully enough to leave a mark or break the skin, pushed. You can be pushed and not have it leave a mark, into walls or knocked to the floor, kicked, choked, punched. Katie lied. She lied when she said that CPS came to the house years ago. She wasn't just complicit in silently saying nothing. She actively lied on Nancy Grace. And on Sunday, February 25th, Sebastian was given the best day ever. Katie made him a homemade breakfast, which we know was unusual because Katie says in her interview, fun fact, I made breakfast. Fun fact. So we know it was unusual. And I'm sorry, I shouldn't make fun of Katie there, but that is how she says it. Fun fact, I made breakfast. So obviously it was unusual that she would make breakfast for Sebastian. It wasn't a normal thing, or she wouldn't have said it like that. So I don't think she would have made such a big deal out of the fact that she made breakfast that day if she made breakfast for Sebastian every day. So again, Sebastian's best day ever. Not typical. As fun fact, Katie made breakfast. Then she picked up her niece and took the niece along with Sebastian to BJ's, where he had a colossal popcorn. And then they went bowling. And then they topped off the best day ever at the Texas Roadhouse restaurant, where we see no interaction between Katie and Sebastian, or very little. She's down in her phone. She's taking pictures of him. Is that to show people later about his great day? Was this to show Seth what a good mom she was? Is this to show law enforcement what a good mother she is? The same mother who went on Nancy Grace and told Nancy Grace and all of us that this CPS incident was years ago. Is this what she, what lies did she tell CPS? Because I think she did not advocate for Sebastian. I think she took those pictures so she could show people what a good mom she was. When PI Chloe tries to ask Chris Proudfoot during WebSleuths live interview, where Chris Proudfoot was not an invited guest, by the way. He crashed this interview that Trisha was doing with PI Chloe. When PI Chloe asked Chris about Sebastian's best day ever, Chris Proudfoot has a meltdown. He loses his mind, allegedly, in my opinion, on WebSleuths live show. You can watch it for yourself. And then we have Katie telling us that she looked for Sebastian for 1 minute flat. Now, Sebastian was 15 years old when she didn't go in his room and she didn't see him. Why would she only look for 1 minute flat? Maybe he went in the garage. Maybe he went to the bathroom. Maybe he stepped outside for a second. Why would you panic, Katie, after 1 minute? And she told us in other interviews that Sebastian likes to hide. That's a game he likes to play. So why was Katie panicking after just 1 minute flat? We know from law enforcement that they showed up en masse to look for Sebastian. So why didn't Katie and Chris appeal right away to the public? Instead, they go to local YouTubers after there's an outcry for them to come out and say something. And I think they're dipping their toe in the water. Why seasoned mainstream media reporter who could get the word out at least locally or to everyone in your state or maybe nationally? Wouldn't you want to have everybody alerted from your local news station to be on the lookout for Sebastian, a 15-year-old special needs? What do you guys think? Are you watching closely? The other thing that's gotten so much attention is profiler Pat Brown, and the fact that Katie went on these local YouTube channels and eventually did speak to mainstream media, but her story changed, just like Chris Proudfoot's CPS stories changed. We have 3 different renditions from Katie Proudfoot of what happened that night, and you just heard her lie to Nancy Grace and to all of us who watched that interview that CPS was years ago. Allegedly, in my opinion. We have repeated 3 different stories. 1, she put Sebastian to bed at 9. That's the end of it. 2, she put Sebastian to bed and there's a thud. 3, she tells him to go to bed, but no response from Sebastian. Version 3, she hears the thud. She asks Sebastian this time, doesn't just tell him to go to bed. She says, "Are you okay?" Because she got outcry for how she was handling him. And then on the 3rd time that she tells the story, the 3rd rendition, the 3rd version by Katie Proudfoot is that Sebastian answers her. And we have discrepancies in the story about the thud, because in some versions, she just says she hears Sebastian making noises in his room. And on other versions, we have this thud. And again, Sebastian had this chromosomal deletion syndrome. This caused him to have water on the brain. So a head injury would be very serious, which is why I'm curious as to why Katie let Chris Proudfoot put his hands on her son. Why I'm curious why Katie Proudfoot didn't get up off the couch that night and go in and check on Sebastian when she heard the thud that was added in version 2 and version 3 to her story? Did something significant happen at 10 p.m. that night? Another odd thing about listening to Katie Proudfoot, who we just caught flat out lying to all of us in the Nancy Grace interview, is she describes Sebastian's disappearance and she says, "When I woke up, he wasn't there." This sounds a little weird. When I woke up, she said, hold on, let me say this again. I said it wrong. I want to make sure I'm precise. When I woke him up, he wasn't there. Allegedly, in my opinion, she said, when I woke him up. When I woke him up, he wasn't there. Just like we get that in one of the interviews. She said, when I woke him up, he wasn't there. Now, maybe she just misspoke. Or maybe at some point she did wake him up. When I woke him up, he wasn't there. Katie, how do you wake someone up that they're not there? Why are you doing this? The other thing I noticed in rewatching the Chronicles of Olivia video the other day is that the interview she did with Chris and Katie Proudfoot, I noticed that when they went to talk about the lights video, Katie leans back and does what I would describe as veiled eyes. We see this in the Nancy Grace interview too. Veiled eyes. She doesn't look into the camera. She keeps her eyes down and she refuses at certain points making any eye contact with Olivia. And I've seen her do this in Nancy Grace, where she just refuses. And then you contrast that with the 1-year interview where she's making eye contact and she's sad. And she and Chris are talking like how they should have talked at the beginning. If they had interviewed at the beginning, like they did in this most recent 1-year anniversary interview, we would not even be sitting here going through all of this information. But the other thing that jumps out at me in the early Chris and Katie interview is that they needed to be reminded repeatedly to speak to Sebastian with questions like, what would you like to say to Sebastian? Or what would you want to say to somebody who has Sebastian? Missing parents are getting on these news shows so they can appeal. They go on camera to appeal for the public to help find their missing child. And if they believe that the child has been abducted, they go on the air and appeal for the return of that child. What do you guys think? Are you watching closely? But we're not done. The other thing I find disingenuous about Chris Proudfoot is he talks about how he and Katie, early on, he talked about how Katie and Seth Rogers had this great relationship. They were all happily co-parenting Sebastian together. No mention of CPS being called out to the house. Seth said he didn't know about all these calls. And Katie Proudfoot does not correct Chris on this. She sits there silent and complicit while Chris lies to us. And then we find out from PI Heather on News Nation that there was a CPS call open around the time that Sebastian disappeared. And we know Chris Proudfoot had a court appearance where he was trying to get custody of Faith. He was trying to get Faith away from Nina Gomez. But let's go back to the supposed, they spoke regularly with Seth Rogers and had no animosity. In my opinion, this was Chris Proudfoot attempting to get Seth Rogers on their side while he was manipulating the rest of the people around him. He was very anxious to make sure that Seth Rogers wouldn't find out about the CPS reports. And if he did, he wouldn't say anything about them. So we were all great co-parents. And also tried to align him and Katie with Seth Rogers. There were multiple CPS cases open due to the way that Chris Proudfoot was treating Sebastian Rogers. And in New Mexico, I believe, in my opinion, allegedly, that these cases were open because of how he was treating the children of Nina Gomez. So Chris Proudfoot wasn't coming home for the whole month of February, according to what he just told Nancy Grace. If you can believe anything he says. What kind of parent? He says now he misses Sebastian. He calls him his son. He wasn't even caring enough to come home for the month of February, for the weekends. It's only a few hours away. He wasn't even caring enough to show up for Sebastian. He didn't care enough to go to counseling to deal with his anger management issues. Does that bother you? What Chris Proudfoot's told you? Does the fact that Katie Proudfoot went on the air and lied to you, does this bother you? What do you guys think? Are you watching closely? And Chris Proudfoot was very interested in Seth Rogers because Seth Rogers was getting good press because he was out actually searching for Sebastian. Seth Rogers is not perfect. And law enforcement doesn't get to pick the parents of a child that go missing. And Peter Hyatt has told us one of the best ways, not the best ways, I don't mean it in a positive way, but one of the ways to get in the least amount of trouble for committing child abuse, one of the easiest ways to not get in trouble is simply to be neglectful. That's what Peter Hyatt, statement analyst, says, to just simply be neglectful. And we know now that Chris Proudfoot and Katie Proudfoot were anxiously trying to give Sebastian away to Seth Rogers. And now we've heard rumors that they were, because Seth couldn't take Sebastian till the school year ended. Now we were hearing that they were looking for a boarding school for Sebastian. But I bet you finding a boarding school that would take Sebastian with special needs and with chromosomal deletion syndrome, which would have probably caused the school to need to have extra insurance, would have made him very hard to place in a boarding school, in my opinion. Not to say it was impossible, but it would have been hard. So I think one of these things by itself maybe wouldn't set off a red flag, but when you start adding up the fact that Katie blatantly lied to us, Chris lied to us, it's cumulative. Allegedly, in my opinion. Chris Proudfoot seems very interested in portraying himself as the caring stepfather, but in early interviews, in the one he did with Duchess, he refers to Katie as, quote, the mother. That's distancing language. And he refers to Sebastian as, quote, the young man, not his son. He wasn't the son in his son in the early interviews. He wasn't even his stepson. He was his son. It's distancing language, and it's weird. Even in the morning that Chris calls to let Chris Proudfoot know she cannot find him, Chris Proudfoot, who we know from the Nancy Grace interview, said it took him 3+ hours to go door to door from his workplace in Memphis to his home in Hendersonville, Tennessee, that he does not arrive back at the house that day until around 1 p.m. Allegedly, in my opinion. Now, Katie supposedly calls him, he says in this interview with Nancy Grace, around 6:20. So where was Chris? 7:30, let's say he left work, had to tell his boss where he was going. Let's say he left at 7, 8, 9, 10. He should have been home at 10 a.m. Maybe 11 at the latest. Why is he not getting back till 1? Why didn't he jump in the car and drive right there and start helping to search for Sebastian, his son, as he refers to him in later interviews, that he misses, but that he referred to as the young man in the early interview with Duchess. Another thing that really bothers me, and there's so many things, and let me know what you guys think about this, is that Chris and Katie Proudfoot have told us that Sebastian walked out the door. Chris Proudfoot describes him as stepping off the step. Now, how would you declare he walked out the door if you don't know what happened to him? And this takes me back to Peter Hyatt's analysis of Chris and Katie Proudfoot. And it also makes me think that the fact that Katie left the house to accompany my husband, she left that house weeks after Sebastian disappeared and went to go stay in that camper. How do they know he walked out the door? And it makes me think about that flashlight video. But it also reminds me of Peter Hyatt. Did he walk out the door and the door was locked behind him? Did they let the door lock behind him and just not answer it? And Chris Proudfoot's egging Katie on the phone, allegedly, in my opinion. You know, he needs to man up. Let him take his lumps if he walked out. And Peter Hyatt said that, he felt like Chris Proudfoot is now yoked to Katie. Chris Proudfoot, you are tethered to this woman for the rest of your life. because she involved you in the disappearance of her son. She called you. And we've heard reports, I don't know if these are true or not, that Chris Proudfoot supposedly had a date. Now, this woman didn't talk to me. She talked to Justin, but I just want to appeal to you. If you are out there and you hear me, if you want to come on my show and interview, I would love to interview you and find out about this date that you went on with Chris Proudfoot, about what he told you. The only thing I'm asking is that you said you told Justin that you filed a law enforcement report. I would like to see some type of receipt to prove that you reported this to law enforcement before I have you on. So if you have that, if you report something like when I reported that picture of Sebastian to TBI, I got an email confirmation that they received it. So you should have a receipt if you reported it to law enforcement. So if, pending having that, I would love to interview you. And then we have this flashlight video at 3 a.m. that Chris and Katie Proudfoot are telling us is insignificant, while they're pushing this other video at the 1-year anniversary of Sebastian's disappearance that's supposed to be significant. A video that sounds very much to me like it was described by SF Investigates on Lore Lodge a month before it was released to the media. And even according to SF Investigates, and I'm not blaming him, it was released to the media. I don't know by who, but they were supposed to hold it. He was surprised it came out when it came out. No mainstream media would hold that video with a missing special needs child. That would be so irresponsible. Of course, they checked in with law enforcement right away. Of course, they released it right away. And if you had a video that you thought was Sebastian, wouldn't you turn it over to law enforcement? And I think it's significant that Chris Proudfoot said in his interview with Chronicles of Olivia that, along with Katie, that multiple law enforcement agencies looked at this video at 3 a.m. video, the lights video. Even though it was insignificant, he says law enforcement showed it to him and Katie. Again, if law enforcement didn't think it was significant, why are they showing it to Chris and Katie Proudfoot? Why is the FBI being shown this video? The two mysterious lights that seem to be moving around 3 a.m. Sebastian walked out the door. So I think it's interesting that not only did Chris and Katie not search at all, but they, except for 9 months later, where they searched an area that had reportedly already been searched, but they didn't coordinate with any of the search and rescue teams either, in my opinion. They didn't thank them. What kind of parents don't go to their own child's prayer vigil? Even if you don't believe in prayer, even if you're not a Christian, even if you're not a person that believes in God, or if you're an atheist, you could still show up to the prayer vigil and thank the people that are there. You could still show up to the prayer vigil and thank the searchers. The only time I saw them there was when Chris Proudfoot showed up to tell Seth Rogers he wanted to work with him. He spoke to him privately. And I think it's significant that Katie left the house to accompany Chris Proudfoot, who had been going to work by himself. He was perfectly capable of going to work by himself for the whole month of February. But instead of staying home, like law enforcement told her to, she goes to Memphis with Chris Proudfoot. She left her house, and I know people are going to come into the comment section to tell me she got threats. If she got threats, why didn't she say it on Nancy Grace? She is a grown woman. Worked for a security system. She could have installed a security system. She had relatives in the area. She could have had somebody come stay with her. But bottom line is, nothing was mentioned about these threats until there was this outcry of the fact that they left. And then it was after the fact to fill in that gap of why she left the house. To me, it just seems like she waited until she thought the coast was clear, in my opinion, and then left to accompany her husband, who was perfectly capable of going to work by himself. What do you guys think? Are you watching closely? We're going to talk more. Let me just check in with chat. I don't want to be rude. I know this is interactive, but I did want to share with you. I went back and rewatched. I do go back and I rewatch stuff, and I do think it's important. I do think it's important to go over stuff with new information, look for discrepancies. And if we're doing it, that law enforcement is doing it also. But I'm not done. I'm not done with Chris and Katie Proudfoot. But I just do want to check in with chat. Thank you so much for being here, Jennifer. This is one of our head mods. This is Njaz. Thank you so much for modding today, Njaz. I'm a meme girl. I think we're related. Texas Life Julie, welcome. Right before the last CPS visit. Pay Wizard says the one on WebSleuths channel where he came up on the panel is like a bull in a china shop. Yeah, he's furious. I have that pulled up. I can show you some more of that if you want. But I have some more things I want to say first. I'm not done. I am not done unpacking all of this. Leslie, yeah, it's another lie. Katie literally sat there on Nancy Grace and told us all that she left to accompany Chris Proudfoot. No mention of threats. And she also told us that the CPS was years ago. That's some major gaslighting right there. It just makes you wonder what she told CPS. Jennifer says, I'm surprised Nancy didn't say, doesn't he have special needs? I think Nancy Grace was just trying to, sometimes you just give people rope, just like Trisha did on WebSleuths. I think sometimes you just give people rope. They're walking contradictions. Yeah. 5 CPS cases, Leslie says. Wow. Yep. Please give this a thumbs up. Help me out with the algorithm. Can I kick it? Says they have several cops reports. I thought it's multiple CPS reports. Yep. A man with 5 marriages and 2 CPS reports. I've heard it's more than 2, but because he said he had CPS in 2 states. CPS reports in Tennessee, CPS reports in New Mexico. So those I'm thinking are related to how he treated Nina Gomez's children. So this is his track record. Sebastian wasn't a one-off. Sebastian wasn't just so hard to deal with that I had to act this way. Blame the victim type of thing, which he sort of tries to do during his interviews. I had to. He lied. He forgot his belt. No, this man had major problems with his own anger, in my opinion. But scapegoating Sebastian and blaming him was easier than going to counseling and working out his own issues. Bab says, Chris Proudfoot sounds proud that he had CPS called on him. Yeah, he was like gleeful about it, bragging about it almost, in my opinion. Not yet arrested. Nope. I'm just like wondering in some of these cases, if you have multiple CPS reports and you have teachers that are filing them, can you go back and ask the teachers, did you see marks? If you are a teacher that taught Sebastian and you would like to speak, you can speak to me, by the way. You just have to, prove to me that you're a teacher. I will have to, I will call the school and verify you. And the same thing if you went on this date with Chris Proudfoot that we're hearing about, if you're not going to come up, without me verifying some things. So I am going to do due diligence before I have you on. But, if you would like to talk to me, let me know. You can DM me on Twitter at Davies Raider. 5 wives, 5 CPS cases, 245 in the chat and only 87 likes. Yeah, y'all help me out. And he says, I'm late. Yeah, go ahead and back it up and catch up because I dig. You guys know I dig right in. Candy says the Proudfoots can't keep their story straight. One lie changes into another lie and on and on. Like no one's catching it. Well, it's true. Susie said, hit the thumbs up button. Jim said, you typically do not hear about a man being married 5 times. It's a lot for his age, right? This isn't like somebody who's 90 years old and maybe, he had a wife or 2 pass on. This is like somebody young. Bab said, whack. Yeah, whack. There was a few lies I caught in there. Wow. Yep. 15-year-old. Turned 15 February 7th of 23. So this CPS report was recent. And Sebastian was 15 years old, not years ago. And Katie lied too. That's the thing I wanted to tell you. It wasn't just Chris, but I have more to say. I'm not done. Lily Lou says, I just want to come in and thank you for your coverage. I'll be listening from the bushes. From the bushes? Did I read that right? Thank you so much to Enjaz for the gifted reporter room membership. If you got that membership, please tell me who you are. Thank you so much, Enjaz. Thank you, Nick the Hat. Oh, Nick the Hat. I know who you are. I've seen you on Facebook. Hi, Nick. Thank you so much, Nick the Hat. I really, really appreciate the $1.99. And thank you so much, Enjaz. Thank you for all you do, she says. Thank you, Enjaz, so much. That's really, really kind of you. I appreciate it. Leslie says, I don't understand how you could leave your home without your child, with your child missing. No, nobody can. That's why she had to change the story. That's why we got, I was threatened. I had to leave in later interviews. Brother Mike says, Katie Proudfoot is a liar. Babs says, bingo, her husband is way more important than her missing 15-year-old disabled child. She chose Chris Proudfoot over her son and has zero concern. Yep. And Jess says, no normal mom would leave. No way. No, mom. Tell me if you would have left. Put a 1 in the chat. If you agree with Katie Proudfoot and you would have left to accompany your husband, put a 1 in the chat. If you would have nothing would have dragged you out of that house, you would still be there to this day. Put a 2 in the chat. I just want to see where we're at with this. Kenna Kickett says, another big odd tell of her behavior is the Texas Roadhouse, how little she interacts with him when dining alone with him. Yeah, I think that's very, very telling. We've got her on Texas Roadhouse and she's sitting there like this into her phone. And when she's on her phone, she's looking around, but she's not really engaging with him. She takes some pictures of him. Is that to just, commemorate the day for his best day ever? Chloe and Sophia say Katie has been busted lying from her first TV interview. She says 2 separate days that her son went missing and so on. Bab says, in my opinion, they never searched a day in their lives. They went searching one time that I know about, and it was about 9 months in, and they searched an area that had already been searched. So let's talk about that. So they searched an area that had already been searched. So either one of two things happened. Either they're so out of touch with the searchers that they didn't know the area was searched, or they intentionally went and searched an area that they knew had already been cleared. Let me know what you guys think. So again, I just think that this date that Chris Proudfoot supposedly went on, where he tells the date, and Justin is the one that reported this out, so I have not verified this, but he allegedly tells this date that his son died in some type of accident. And this is, this reminds me of Scott Peterson when he was cheating on Lacey. He had an affair with Amber Fry. Now, Amber Fry did not know he was married because Scott Peterson told her that his wife had died. And now, and then we find out that, Amber came forward in the Lacey Peterson, Scott Peterson case, Amber Fry, and says, no, he was dating me. He told me his wife died. So again, one of these things by itself, 2 of these things wouldn't sound the alarm, but when you start adding everything together, I can see why so many people have shared with me that they're concerned about what happened to Sebastian Rogers. And it seems like complete strangers are more concerned and working harder to find Sebastian Rogers and search for Sebastian Rogers than his own mother and stepfather. And on this night of all nights, on Sebastian's best day ever, Katie, who by all accounts has told us that she normally sleeps with the dogs when Chris Proudfoot is out of town, on that night, she has put the dogs in their crates or kennels or cages, whatever they sleep in. But the dogs are put away that night of all nights, even though Chris Proudfoot supposedly isn't home. So I do think that Chris has tailored his language, but watching how he talked to PI Heather in the recorded call on the lab tells us a lot. watching how he talked to Trisha on WebSleuths Live, how rude he was, just, how awful he was. Makes me wonder how he talked to Sebastian. Makes me sad. And I think Katie sat there and did absolutely nothing. She sat on her hands while this man took a belt to her son and probably talked to him as awful as he talks to other people. And Chris Proudfoot described this case as being, quote, one to be studied, allegedly. I think that's weird. One to be studied. And again, these things by itself, one thing would just be an anomaly. Maybe somebody misspoke. But start putting everything together, and it's just red flag after red flag. And you don't have to take my word for it. Take the word of statement analyst Steve Johnson, who thought the 10 p.m. and the thud was significant. Take the word of statement analyst Peter Hyatt, who's no longer with us, but who did, two at length, definitely worth watching statement analyst work on the mother, Katie Proudfoot. And the other thing that bothers me is that when Chris and Katie Proudfoot, when they've gone on to, YouTube channels after the fact, they never have asked people to call into the YouTube channels with tips about their son. And maybe I missed one. I haven't seen them all. And I'm still questioning who ran off the United Cajun Navy. Back when this happened, they thought YouTubers did it. And I was like, no way. YouTubers wouldn't be driving off searchers. And I still don't think it was YouTubers. But I think somebody ran off the United Cajun Navy. I do believe they got threats. And then I've heard people putting down the neighbor Bobby when she's tried to come out and speak and say what she heard. Because she was told that the thud happened at 11:30 p.m., not 10 p.m. So she got told a different time, according to her. And I think it's really important that people made fun of neighbor Nate in the Chris Watts case. They called him Nosy Nate. But if it wouldn't have been for neighbor Nate and his, video camera, Chris Watts might have gotten away with that. What he did to Shanann and those girls. He might have gotten away with it. Maybe not, but then, neighbors coming forward helps. So I think we should give some space for neighbors to say what they think. Even if some people do think that they're nosy, it doesn't matter. Let's hear what they have to say. I want to hear all of it because there's a special needs child who needs to be found. We need to find out what happened to Sebastian Rogers. And I think it's great for law enforcement, for nosy neighbors and neighbors with doorbell cams and security cameras. I think that helps law enforcement. So neighbor Bobby, if you watch this, I hope you know that most of us on YouTube are really appreciative of the fact that you came forward and told us how Chris Proudfoot was talking to you and how he tried to run you off when you were driving through your own neighborhood. I'm glad you did an interview about this case. And Chris Proudfoot has so much free time. This not searching for Sebastian just really bothers me because, up until a few months ago when I think, they got an attorney and lawyered up when the feds got involved and offered a $50,000 reward when the FBI came in. Before that, Chris and Katie had seemed to have lots of time to sit on YouTuber channels and chat and talk, which I think is great. I give props to the YouTubers who had them on and kept them talking. Again, giving them rope. But they had all the time in the world to watch YouTube and call into YouTubers and Chris Proudfoot wasn't invited onto this WebSleuths Live. He barged in on an interview she was doing with PI Chloe. But they have no time. They didn't have any time to search for Sebastian. What do you guys think? Are you watching closely? And it just really bothers me. It just really bothers me. And these two are sitting there in their camper. Look at the background on that. They're in the camper talking to Nancy Grace. And Katie's not at home. Katie is not at home. You guys, we're going to still talk about this. I'm not done, but I just do want to I do want to just say my thank yous. If you haven't subscribed, please do. But thank you to our producers, and Jazz, Sasha Angel, George Brown, Pepper, and Lisa Fazio. Thank you to our channel members. We're not done. I'm not done. We haven't gone through WebSleuths yet. I just started, but I do want to just say my thank yous before we get too far into this. And thank you to all our channel members for allowing me to cover cases like this. I really appreciate you guys. If you would like to have your name appear like this, you just hit the join button. It's next to the subscribe button. And thank you so much for your super thanks and coffee gratitude. Thank you, Rebecca Bruce, Brother Mike, Kat, Brother Mike, Pam from New York, Georgie Girl, Esmeralda Real. Thank you, Enjaz, for the gifted channel memberships. Rebecca Bruce and Brother Mike and Esmeralda Real. Okay, so let me just say hello to chat, and we're going to get into WebSleuths Live. But this just bothers me. It really just really bugs me. Oh. Let me see where we are. I know I'm behind on chat. I'm sorry if I'm behind on chat. Let me see. Okay, so I'm looking for the numbers now. So 1, if you would have left the house, and a 2, if you would still be there to this day, was my question. Not if you would ever leave the house, but you would still be. Just make it like, Katie's on the phone, on the interview with Nancy Grace, and she's not in the house at that point. There was nobody threatening her. 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2. This is if you would still be there to this day. Put a 2 in the chat. If you would have left left right away, or left at any point, put a 1 in the chat. 2, 2. Jennifer says never. 2, 2. Heck no. Pepper says heck no. 2, 2, 2, 2, 2. Dorothy said, thank you for what you do, ma'am. We care. Thank you, Dorothy. Thanks for being here for Sebastian, you guys. Diane says CPS workers would never interview a child with the parents present or warn them about filing false reports. I've interacted with CPS many times in my 46 years as a special education teacher. Thank you for that, Diane. I told you guys when Chris Proudfoot said that he overheard the CPS worker talking to Sebastian outside, that one of 2 things happened. Either 1, Chris Proudfoot is lying to us about this, or number 2, he was listening at the door to a private conversation. I don't know which is the truth, because Chris Proudfoot has been caught lying. Shelley says 2. Tara Bear says, see, Chris Proudfoot said he also got a swap because it probably had something to do with school rather than he got a swap. Right, exactly, for not wearing his belt. Multiple stories for multiple interviews. Because when one story doesn't fly or doesn't sit right, we'll just tell another one. And if people don't like it that I didn't stay home because I wanted to accompany my husband, let me embellish that and say, well, yeah, and I got threats. I'll add that later when I get asked about it. Thanks, Outer Banks. Thank you to Diane. You are so important. Can I kick it? It says it's okay to research areas, though. Research areas, look at little baby Dane and other cases. Yeah, that's a great point. It's okay to research the same area. You're right. That's true. Jersey said, I wouldn't leave the house. Teresa, thank you so much for your $1.99 super chat. I really, really appreciate it. That is very generous of you. Karen says, thank you. Good day. In the bushes, bumping down the road. Sorry for typo. Oh, okay. I didn't know what you meant. I was like, in the bushes. And I thought maybe you were out searching. I thought maybe you were searching. Outer Bank says, hey, Chris Proudfoot, Katie Proudfoot, we know you are watching. Where is Sebastian? Teresa puts a 2. And Justice, thank you for your theories. Teresa Rodriguez, for your kind support. Bliss Blessing said, I would have made sure that someone would always be at my house if I had to leave for any reason. I definitely would not leave town, right? Because he could be anywhere and everywhere. Pepper says, thank you to Teresa. For you keep our channel going and growing. Jersey said, I wouldn't have left my house if my dog was missing. And this is a special needs child. Thank you for that, Jersey. Texas Life Julie says, Chris Proudfoot keeps digging himself in deeper. Annie puts a 2. Jersey says, Jennifer says to you, Jersey, amen. A says, Scott Peterson also did join the search for Lacey. Yeah, and he appealed for her. He was I don't know if he wanted to get on camera. I think he was avoiding cameras. I think he did avoid cameras because he was probably worried. And that, I think that is how he got busted with Amber Fry. Amber Fry busted him, but she didn't tell him. She kept them talking. She went to law enforcement. Leslie Keep It Real says, in my opinion, they can't keep the script together. I believe this was planned out, in my humble opinion. Moonlight View says he showed us. They said also didn't join. Blessing says bullseye. Jenny says, I'm from UK, creates a normal description. Crates is a normal description for kennels. Oh, okay. Thank you for that. Pay Wizard says, per Nina, he's talking about Nina Gomez, I believe Chris Proudfoot backhanded her little daughter across the mouth and busted her lip. Yeah, and I think that she was described by statement analyst Peter Hyatt as being reliable. He thought maybe she didn't share some things that she did, but he thought for the most part she was that he thought her telling of it. Not for the most part, he didn't qualify, but he said she thought she might have left out a few things that she did to Chris Proudfoot, but that he felt like her statement was reliable. He didn't see deception, in other words. Thanks, Brother Mike, for modding today. Okay, so let's continue on. Let me flip over. I might have bit off more than I could chew, but I'm going to play this and just let me know if you guys can hear it or not. I just want to make sure you guys can hear it.
And for people to not understand, when you
guys hear
discipline a
it?
child, there's a difference in discipline and abuse. There truly is a difference.
But I think hitting any.
Can you guys hear that? Could you hear that? Just yes or no. Can you hear that? I don't want to play it and then find. Yeah. Okay, good. Yes. Okay. I just want to make sure because I've played stuff before and then found out after I played it, Welcome Grace, that the people couldn't hear it. So he's going to qualify why it's okay that he hit the special needs child. He's going to qualify it.
But
I'm not saying you.
I think the way he was just talking a minute ago, to me, it sounded normal, given the fact that the 90% of the chat is just trashing him.
No, that's not true. That is not true. We are kicking the people out.
I can see it right now. No, I know you're kicking him out, but I keep seeing comment after comment after comment after comment that are really suspicious and like,
yeah,
oh,
great.
Yeah, people are really suspicious. They are.
Just close the chat. I'm not even.
Yeah, like you had somebody in the chat that literally asked the question, was Katie arrested at 19 for an incident? Like, I'm sorry. But once again, this goes right back to none of that has anything to do with Sebastian.
Okay.
Yeah, Matt.
Yeah, I'm not trying to.
Was she? Like, that was
I'm not trying to create anything.
I know you're not, Gray.
I'm just trying to say that I absolutely understand how he's feeling. And I know out there they go, oh, look at he's soothing Chris's ego. I listen, I've talked to him late night on a phone. He's just a normal dude trying to figure something out.
And I believe Gray. I believe when he talked to Gray on the phone that he came across as a normal dude. And that's how he talks to men. But that's not how he talks to women. I don't think that's how he talks to children either.
That's how he sounds like. Now he's on here with I've seen him on shows. Remember at the beginning, him and his wife would go on shows and they were totally calm, talking, and they were normal, but everybody dissected every single word that they said.
Yeah. But I don't want to I like Gray, so I don't want to get Gray into any trouble. So let me just fast forward over this little part.
They were going to come to the house and they're going to take me out of the house and do this and do that. That is what the CPS case was about. And
let's listen to that again.
Word that they said, and everybody came up with a negative meaning for every single.
Well, let me tell you what happened. I can explain. Let me tell you, Chris, when you went on and talked about hitting Sebastian with a belt and kind of, just chuckling about it and how the social services or child protective services came to your door and apologized to you, that got people upset. It got people.
Right. Let's clear that real quick.
Okay.
That needs to be cleared up because what was said and what people heard are two totally different things.
I heard you say you hit him with a belt.
Okay, so let me finish because that's the problem. When I go to make the statement, people want to interrupt and try to say, well, this and that. No,
See how different he talks to Gray than he talks to Trisha? So, this is where I think people have seen red flags. He doesn't talk to everybody. He talks to men different than he talks to women.
You
in my
wanted the
opinion.
answer. I'm giving you the answer. Now,
And he was not an invited guest on this show. I just want to say, Chris Proudfoot was not an invited guest. This was an interview with P.I. Chloe.
I answered that question. I told people Sebastian got a spanking. He got one lick on his butt outside of his clothes. If somebody can tell me how that's abuse to a child, explain to me.
Can you confirm when that happened?
I don't. That was years ago.
I got spanked by a belt.
That's a lie. He just told us on Smiley Story World that Sebastian was 15. So not years ago. So and that P.I. Heather, who's sitting there, she's the one with the wings, and P.I. Chloe, she's the one with the globe around her on the upper left, and P.I. Heather, I believe, is sitting in the middle. They know about the CPS case being closed right around the time Sebastian disappeared. So they know this.
Belt and wooden spoon by my mom for years.
So, but let's not sidetrack.
And I feel really badly that happened to Gray. I don't want to minimize that. That's really sad.
Stay on board. Okay. So the question about the CPS thing that came up to play that everybody wants to tie to this belt is not what it was.
Okay.
Well, I think it was confusing because when you initially talked about it, you referred to him as an embarrassed 15-year-old. So
Yes, you did.
Like it was years ago.
We thought it was like right recently.
He did say it was a 15-year-old. But give him the rope.
Well, instead of asking more clarification,
let's clear it up.
So, as it stands, Sebastian went to school one day. He made a statement to a teacher. The teacher reports it to CPS. CPS comes to the house. That case has nothing to do with Sebastian getting spanked. That had everything to do with Sebastian didn't like being in trouble. So he thought by reporting it to a teacher, they were going to come to the house and they're going to take me out of the house and do this and do that. That is what the CPS case was about. And yes, I laughed at it because when I explained to Sebastian, very detailed, what happened, he thought it was a joke. When the CPS lady shows up and looks at him and says, Sebastian, you can't false report. That will get people in trouble and you can get in trouble.
I don't believe she said that to him. I don't believe anything Chris Proudfoot says.
And then she explained to him what happens.
What did he say you did to him?
Can I ask you, what does that have to do with the price of eggs in China?
That has everything to do with the price of eggs in China. What did Sebastian claim you did to him? If you are a teacher of Sebastian and you would like to contact me, I'm at Davies Writer on Twitter. My account is verified. And I was verified before they started selling the blue check marks. So please contact me and you could talk to me anonymously. I will just require some kind of proof that you are a teacher. You could give me a pay stub with your, take out your account information, but I would, do want to know that you really are a teacher. But if you would like to speak out to me about what Sebastian told you, I think we need to get the full story out.
When it comes to the disappearance of Sebastian.
Because I'll tell you why. Because you're wondering why people are coming at you. And it's because he was in your home last. That was the last place he was seen.
Yes,
so
he was.
When we hear these things, it's like, okay, let's just clear it up and see what happened. Because I'll tell you why. Because people, I'm not saying me, but I've seen people say, hey, he was hitting his child. He reported it to his teacher. Did something happen? Was there an explosive incident that happened?
No, absolutely nothing of that nature.
Okay.
And for people to not understand, when you discipline a child, there's a difference in discipline and abuse. There truly is a difference.
But I think hitting anybody with a belt is abuse. I'm sorry, I do. And a lot A lot of people agree with me, and that's the problem.
And
So we
guess
have a
what?
difference
That's
of
the
opinion.
great thing. That's the great thing about having your opinion.
Yes.
That's an opinion. That's not a fact. That's opinion.
Okay. I think a belt is abuse, but that's my, again,
Well,
that is my,
if I was leaving, if I was leaving bruises and marks on a child, that's abuse. That would be considered abuse.
okay.
Yeah. I mean,
Okay,
So
but-
by definition,
oh, that's weird.
that's what I'm trying to get y'all to understand. You can say your opinion, and that is fine, but you have to back it up and say, what I'm stating is just an opinion. There's no fact to it. When you don't say that, you leave it open to interpret.
Boy, he does not want it to be said as a fact. I'm sorry, I did have it muted. So what I showed you guys was I just showed you really quickly. I just wanted to, thanks for telling me I'm muted. I'm glad. I've been really trying to be good about checking in with you guys to make sure I don't mute myself and then forget to turn it on. But this is like just, you know, I'm sorry, but just because it doesn't leave a mark doesn't mean it's okay. And it's not, you know, that it's not this word right here. Just because you don't leave a mark, you could slap someone, you could push somebody. It doesn't mean it's okay just because you don't leave a mark. So that argument is just absolute nonsense. It's a ridiculous argument from a ridiculous person, from a ridiculous excuse of a man that would do this to a special needs child.
Interpretation for a lot of people to take it and run with it. That was a lot of the problems with this.
And there will be people, I can get people from CPS that will say hitting a child with a belt is an abuse. But here's the thing, you're right. That doesn't have anything to do necessarily with Sebastian and his disappearance. But what it does is it creates a narrative in people's minds that we need to clear up and change, Chris. We need to clear it up and change it. Okay? So let's do that.
So we just did.
Okay. If now you did go on Nancy Grace and say that CPS has never been called, and
no, that's not. No. Nope.
Okay, that's what I heard. What did you say?
She asked the question about a situation, and she asked me if I had ever had CPS called on me. I believe is what the question was. I'm going to tell you right now, I don't exactly know what the question was without hearing it again. So I'm not going to answer you with something without having it in front of you.
Okay.
So he won't even answer it now. He's told so many lies on Smiley Story World. It's one story. Nancy Grace, it's another story. He's afraid to answer it because he can't even keep his lies straight anymore. Allegedly, in my opinion. You guys, this is awful. We're going to leave it there. If you want to watch the rest of this interview, it is definitely worth watching. It is WebSleuths Live. And it's titled, "We Welcome the Private Investigators for the Case of Missing Sebastian Rogers." So Chris Proudfoot was never invited on this show. He came up of his own accord because instead of searching for Sebastian, he's got time to appear on YouTube, but no time to search for his special needs child. And he's told so many lies, in my opinion, that he cannot keep them all straight. Let me know what you think about all of this in the comment section below. And please help me out. I cannot get to 40,000 subscribers without you. Please consider subscribing. If you do or you don't, it doesn't matter. I'm still going to cover this case, of course. But if you want to help me out, it does help me out, and it's free. So thank you for coming by to spend a little bit of time with me. If you just joined me late, back this up to the beginning, because I show you where Katie Proudfoot lied to Nancy Grace and lied to all of us that watched that live stream, that interview. Very, very interesting. So thank you so much for coming by to spend a little bit of time with me, and I will see you guys on the next one. I'm headed over now to do a members only live stream, so come on and join me over there.